So I was listening to this story the other day about the power of doing deep work, the deep work inside of our souls, inside of our hearts, that help us grow as individuals inside of our own consciousness and our own spirit on the inside. And so I wanted to jump on a video today to talk a little bit more about it. And the concept behind this is deep work over time in community can help lead us to having the greatest alignment in our life, the greatest understanding of our own self, and to see our own consciousness, our own souls, our own spirituality in the greatest light, to better understand ourselves and to just rest in ourselves. And a lot of people are so anxious, they're so irritable, they're so fast-paced, and they're dealing with such urgency in their life. They're constantly running the rat race in this life that they don't have the chance to just sit with themselves and cherish those moments to sit with themselves. They often run away from those times to just sit and rest and relish and to feel satisfied in their soul with that time spent by themselves. Oftentimes we can feel distracted and gravitate to becoming more distracted rather than just sitting inside of our own self, to sit calmly in our own consciousness, because it's more uncomfortable to sit with our consciousness sometimes than it is to deal with the actual hardships or the emotions or the grieving or the trauma that we might need to be able to actually grow through on the inside to become a better individual on the outside. And the concept of doing deep work over time in community really helps us understand the benefits to, one, doing the deep work, meaning it's going to be deep, it's going to be challenging, it's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it in the end, because deep work means we're digging deep. We're finding the roots inside of our own soils that lead to the fruits in our lives. The farther we dig, the deeper we dig in our own souls, in our own hearts, in our own lives, to better understand our consciousness, how we interact, the reason why we think what we do, and the way that we interact in the world. The more we can understand that, the more we can ensure that we are wiring the right synapses from our brain and biology together in a way that actually suits our survival and opportunity to thrive in life and to flourish, rather than constantly living life as a rat race in constant pursuit to, one, maybe please other people, or to try to be a perfectionist, or to try to prove ourselves to other people, feeling fears of not being enough or that we'll never be enough. These are things that we can all work towards healing if we spend the time in deep work, over time, in community. So, we covered the deep work section. Now, over time means we need to show up. We need to show up consistently. It's not going to be easy. You don't run a race. You don't run a marathon starting to train day one and then say, I'll run the marathon tomorrow. No, it takes time. It takes time to sit with ourselves, to get better at sitting with ourselves. It takes practice. With practice comes progress. And so when we go through practice, day in, day out, of just sitting still with ourselves a little bit more, the better we can hold on to who we are, the better we can actually sit and cherish our consciousness, our soul, our calm, our rest, our relaxation. These are things that we oftentimes ignore in this giant kind of fixated busyness, grinding out, hustle society and culture that we live in today. And so if we do deep work over time, consistently, spending time with ourselves and time to learn more about ourselves, to learn more about how we think and how we feel, our own emotions, our personality traits, the more time we spend on that over time, the more of a compounding effect it may have. When we spend 1% if we improve 1% every day to better understand our own selves, it really compounds over the course of a year, over the course of a couple years, to where we can just blossom into a whole new soul, a whole new spirit, more than what we possibly could have ever imagined. The more we learn about ourselves. And we don't need to have a quarter life, midlife, three-quarter life crisis before we end up blossoming out of our shells, before we come out of our cocoon and really understand who we are. We don't need to have the experience that's common for parents where they're an empty nester now, to where their kids go off to college and all of a sudden they're like, well, what is my life? What is my personality? What is my purpose? What is my passion? What is my career? What is my life? What is my personhood? Because their personhood was so fixed in their role with their children or their role with their household. We can actually hold on to who we are and our own personhood, our own purpose, and our own passions if we do the deep work over time, and to sit with ourselves and to love ourselves and to find self-love through spending more time with ourselves. Oftentimes we avoid spending time with ourselves, therefore we end up lacking self-love and self-compassion and self-trust and self-esteem because we've never spent enough time with ourselves to actually trust ourselves, to understand who we are, to love ourselves for who we are, and to cherish those little nuanced curiosities or those little quirks of our personalities that make us so unique. So, doing the deep work, digging deep over time, consistently showing up and believing in the process, believing in the progress that we will make in the process. And then in community. Humans were designed for community. I've said it once and I'll say it 1,000 times. Humans were designed for community. We suffer if we spend too much time alone. We energetically feed off one another when we step inside the same room together. We improve our lives by spending more time together with one another, to shape and to sculpt, to mold, and to help us along the way to navigate life, to navigate the changing times, to navigate what's right or wrong or the pros and cons. The more perspectives we can have on a situation, the more we can have someone call out our blind spots or to guide us along the path to expedite a potential challenge that we would have had to have faced on our own, but they can help us go through it or even go around it and learn from their mistakes if they teach us and they mentor us. And I say all this because in community, our souls and our spirits and our consciousness, they can be shaped with love and security and safety and give us the chance to feel freedom and grace and the biofeedback mentally, emotionally, and physically and energetically with other people if we allow ourselves to spend time in community. Oftentimes it will be easier for us to love ourselves if we first step into allowing other people to love us and vice versa. For some people it might be easier to start to learn how to love ourselves by stepping into letting other people love us. Other people, it might be easier to let other people love themselves if they begin to learn themselves, if they learn to love themselves first. So, in community, we have the chance to sit and to rest in safety and security and freedom and grace, to actually be able to receive energetic frequencies, energetic healing back into our hearts, into our spirits. But outside of that, we oftentimes get stuck in this isolated perspective. We don't have the chance to grow. We don't have the chance to question what we call as normal, what we call as this status quo in our lives. We don't know that there is anything different. And other people can feed love and truth and confidence and self-esteem into our lives by telling us the hard truths of, you know, you're really good at that, but you're not so good at that. We love you because you are so unique and you love to do this. But be you. You can only be the best you that you can be, so don't try to be anybody else. Focus on being you, and people around you can support your growth and understanding and your grasp onto who you truly are, and to feed you the love and the truth that you may need to hear in difficult times of your life. And the more you spend time doing the deep work inside your soul and your spirit, over time you can grow, and then your community around you supports you in that growth and then provide you a platform and safety in that platform as you grow in your own consciousness. And then guess what? You, with your elevated consciousness, are then better prepared to serve other people. And that's really what it all comes down to, is all of us raising our level of consciousness, raising our level of individual spirituality, individual understanding of ourselves, to then better be able to plan, prepare, and provide for others. Because if we're all broken on the inside, which we all are to a degree, If we're all broken on the inside, it's incredibly difficult to heal others if we need a medic ourselves. And so one of the best things that we can actually do to help others is to help ourselves. Sometimes we have to heal our own wounds before we start running around trying to help others. Because if our wounds are actually bleeding all over us, and we're bloody, and we're hurt, and we're injured, and we're wounded, and we start running around trying to help others, well, it's going to be pretty clear that we're actually very wounded and that we need help from other people. It might come across passively. It might come across kind of intuitively, actually, because you've probably been around somebody in the past where they were just kind of doing these little subtle self-digs to where you could tell that somewhere on the inside of their own consciousness, they didn't really care a lot about themselves, and they had a lot of these self-deprecating, self-shaming, let's call it that for now, self-shaming or self-condemning constructs and these statements that they would use inside a conversation. Oftentimes you see this with comedians, and it's funny, and it's comedic, and it's humorous, and it helps people laugh. But to some degree, in just natural living life with other people, sometimes this comes across as very, kind of messy, kind of nasty, and hard to work through with other people, because you just want to love on them, you just want to live life with them, but they're presenting all this wounds, all this unhealed trauma, all of this unspoken expectations, and that individual needs love and support. That individual needs healing on the inside and out, but they're running around in a rat race of life with urgency and just trying to be a perfectionist and trying to help provide for other people, because it's harder for them to just sit with themselves. And actually, the best thing that they may need to do is actually to do the hard work, the deep work, over time in a community that loves and supports them to heal their own self. And so many of us can go through 20, 30, 40 years plus before we ever actually step into these higher levels of consciousness and understanding of our own self, on the inside and out. And the message that I heard around this was really interesting to me, because I believe that deep work, meditation, journaling, reading, prayer, mindfulness, spending time alone in life has become increasingly difficult for the everyday common consumer or the everyday common citizen. And it's kind of scary to think about what would happen if that became so unbearable that we avoided it at all costs. We decided to turn on entertainment and to numb our senses instead of sitting with our emotions. And if we have adults that use that as their stereotypical coping mechanism, are they then ever able to teach children how to actually cope, or to walk through a struggle, or how to overcome an obstacle, how to walk through failure and then find success at the end of the tunnel, to know that the sun will come up tomorrow? It's an interesting play on humanity if you consider the longevity perspective of, let's say, hampered or inhibited consciousness, 1 generation, 2 generations, 3 generations down, and just what loss of capability, what loss of self-esteem, of confidence, cultural compassion with one another, and kindness between cultural groups could be lost potentially if we're just suffering the wounds of our ancestors. I don't know. It's interesting to think about. But I just wanted to share that message with you today, because I want to encourage you and myself and everybody else to think a little bit more about doing the deep work inside of our own souls, inside of our own hearts, to heal ourselves, so we can better heal others down the road. And we interact in the community, and we do the deep work over time together, supporting our own self and supporting the community as a whole. We are better together as a humanity, humans working in unity for communal shared goals and interests. Essentially, the golden rule of treating others how you'd like to be treated yourself is one of the best things that we can do as well. But I share all that because I found it interesting for me to think about in my life, in my work, in my role in relationships with other people, and how I like to show up for other people, and understanding myself and how I've learned throughout this process of doing deep work and understanding my personality, my traits, my background, how my childhood experiences shaped my world, my worldview, and how I talk to people, how I interact with people, what I think about myself as well. It's really helped me to kind of transition and transform how I live my life for the better, learning how I developed. And I think that's one thing that we can all grow in a little bit, to live our best lives possible and to find happiness, to find joy, to find strength and stability through challenges and through times where we may feel depression or anxiety or isolated or sad and upset, or even as if we're lonely in life. There's a huge epidemic of loneliness as well that's going on, as you probably are well aware. That's been all over the news over the last several years and has been kind of even promoted even more with the pandemic and things. But I want to hear from you. I want to hear about your routine or your perspective around doing deep work. What the deep work even looks like for you, or even if you've ever heard this concept before, and if you think it could be beneficial for you, whether that's therapy, counseling, meditation, mindfulness, journaling, even just reading more books about healing childhood traumas or childhood wounds. Or there's a great sermon out there by C.S. Lewis that's kind of historical about junk tapes or screw tape letters. Essentially these kind of lies that we tell ourselves that kind of put ourselves into these dark dungeons of thoughts and perspectives at our darkest times. But doing that deep work and finding that love and compassion to really love ourselves and to know that we are loved in a greater humanity, to have a greater relationship with ourselves and with others and with a higher power, and in our natural world around us, we can awaken our hearts and awaken our spirits and to become more alive, become more vital, become more available to the energies of our environment, to the energies around us, to pick up on positive frequencies and push away negative frequencies, and to be able to discern those a little bit more too. And I say all this in pursuit of helping us uplift our greater humanity, to uplift our ability to live life together in joy and abundance and prosperity mindsets together, compared to scarcity, competition, combativeness, pugnaciousness. I really do think that learning about ourselves can help us live our best lives possible in community with other people. But that's what I think. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about all of these concepts put together, and if you plan to take any steps toward deep work in your own life, or if you're already doing that. And yeah, go ahead and let me know. You can watch another video from something else that I've decided to talk about, another concept that's interested me, and I decided to take a video and talk a little bit more about it. That's something that I heard about or I learned about. You can check that out, and you can also sign up for my newsletter, which I'll put in the description link below, and that's over at Substack. It's just Zigzag Nutrition on the Substack newsletter website. And there's all kinds of other social channels that you can find me on online. But go ahead and hit the notification bell to get a notification for any next video that I might upload, and make sure that you're subscribed for following videos going forward. Thank you so much, and as always, thank you for following, thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoy this video and feel a little bit more empowered and equipped to live your best life possible with a little bit more introspection and understanding for some of these deeper concepts.